This message brought to you by Nickelodeon.
With imagination.
1, 2, 3. Wakey with.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Nostalgia Trippin'. I'm your host, carlosjuico. This is the show where you guys send me in some theories and I'm gonna break them down with y'all. So today's episode is all about darkest Nickelodeon theories. So I got a bunch of you guys to send me in some theories. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in.
Yo, Carlos, so I heard this crazy theory, fam. So listen, apparently, Fairly Odd Parents actually represent Timmy Turner's antidepressants. Let me know what you think. Let me know.
So there's a theory that Timmy Turner's Fairly Odd Parents are actually a metaphor for his antidepressants. So the first episode of Fairly Odd Parents, where Cosmo and Wanda show up for Timmy, was on his darkest day he's ever had. Even in the intro song, it says they showed up on a dark and gloomy day and made everything feel better. So this theory states that Cosmo and Wanda actually represent the real life antidepressants Zoloft and Prozac. Now Cosmo, representing Zoloft, is the medication that makes you giddy and excited, which lines up exactly to Cosmo's character. Now Wanda represents Prozac, which tends to make you more analytical and focused, which also lines up with her character. Now you can see the parallels throughout the show where whenever Timmy abuses magic, aka antidepressants, is where he falls into trouble. Just like in real life, abusing these medications come with real consequences. So whenever Timmy Turner abuses magic, his wishes often fall into shambles, and he's forced to learn a life lesson through the mistakes he's made. Now this theory gets even deeper because if you think about it, Mr. Crocker was known to have fairies before, and if fairies represent antidepressants, that means Mr. Crocker might have been a drug addict, which is why he seems very unhinged in the show. Now I actually went back and watched a little bit more of Fairly Odd Parents, and yo, to be honest, a lot of these themes, they kind of line up, and I wouldn't be surprised if the writers put this in as kind of like an Easter egg for the adults watching to see if they catch on to it. Leave down in the comments what you guys think about that one.
So Carlos, I heard this one theory where the Krabby Patty secret formula is actually crab meat. Hey, let me know what you think.
So there's a theory that the Krabby Patty secret formula contains crab, and Mr. Krabs is actually a cannibal. Now if you think about it, in the show, Mr. Krabs is the only crab in Bikini Bottom. Now in one episode of SpongeBob, Mr. Krabs takes a bite out of a Krabby Patty and says, so that's what I taste like?
So that's what I taste like.
He said that. Now this theory goes even deeper because eventually, if you think about it, you're gonna run out of crabs if there's no more crabs to kill, right? So in sushi restaurants, as we know, there's a thing called imitation crab, which is made with fish. So what if Mr. Krabs is now killing fish and using them as a replacement for the crab meat in the Krabby Patties? So he's feeding fish other fish. Maybe that's why in that one episode with the health inspector, he was so afraid of getting caught. And he was so on guard to make sure everything was perfect and he wouldn't get in trouble. Even the Krusty Krab name, just think about it, Krusty Krab. Now think about other fast food restaurants in real life. Burger King, Taco Bell. Come on, yo. Krusty Krab. They're definitely serving crab meat. What else are they selling?
Listen, Carlos, I heard this theory from the Blues Clues. Apparently it's about Steve drugs hallucinations. Like what? Tell me what you think about that.
So there's a theory that Blue's Clues is actually based off Steve's drug hallucinations. So if you think about it, the show itself is pretty odd. Steve goes around with a dog that can communicate with him on adventures in his house, while inanimate objects such as clocks, salt and pepper shakers, even notepads can talk to him. Now if you take this look on it, that he's actually hallucinating on a psychedelic trip, then it really does make sense to why all of these things can talk to him and how he's creating all of these scenarios in his head. He even jumps into pictures and travels to another world within that picture frame. Now this theory gets a little bit darker because it says that, you know, that little kid's voice that's always talking to him, this theory says that that kid's voice is actually the kid that he's neglecting while he's doing all of these hard drugs. Now in the last episode we see as Steve hosting Blue's Clues, if you guys remember, a bus comes and picks him up and says that he's going to college. But what if college actually represents the the rehab center that he's enrolled to for his drug abuse. This one's mad dark, but if you think about it, all of these things really come together. You can start to see kind of like hidden details that you wouldn't have noticed before.
Yo, Carlos. So I found a theory that the characters in SpongeBob represent the 7 deadly sins. Let me know what you think.
So there's a theory that the main characters in SpongeBob actually represent the 7 deadly sins. So on the surface, SpongeBob just seems like a really innocent show. But this theory states that the 7 main characters in SpongeBob represent the darkest depths of the human soul. So in Christianity, there are 7 cardinal sins that are responsible for all forms of evil in the world. So let's break it down. Patrick, he represents sloth. Patrick doesn't do anything all day long. He just chills under his rock and doesn't give a care about in the world what anybody else is doing or what he's doing at the time. Squidward, he represents wrath. Squidward is constantly trying to sabotage SpongeBob's fun, and he's always hating on whatever they're doing. Now, Mr. Krabs, this one's obvious, yo. This one is greed. Mr. Krabs represents greed. He's so obsessed with money and he's so obsessed with all of his riches, he'll do anything to get it. Now, Plankton, this one's obvious too. Plankton represents envy. He's envious of Mr. Krabs. He's envious of the Krusty Krab, and he does whatever he can to try and steal the Krabby Patty secret formula from him because he's so envious. Now, this one's not as obvious, but Gary actually represents gluttony. So the definition of gluttony is the habitual greed or excess in eating. Now, I don't know if you guys remember that one episode. Gary ate all of that food at once. He devoured a whole pile of kibbles with one gulp. Now, Sandy actually represents pride. Now, this one's dope because if you think about it, Sandy's always so prideful of Texas because Sandy believes Texas is superior to all other places. Now, finally, this one's really interesting. SpongeBob represents lust. Now, if you think deep about it, SpongeBob has an excessive, unhealthy love for all people. Even people that despise him, such as Squidward, he still has so much love to give to him, which exemplifies that cardinal sin of lust.
Carlos, I found this crazy theory that Jimmy Neutron actually lives in a simulation for the government to steal his ideas. What's your thoughts on this?
So there's a theory that Jimmy Neutron is actually in a simulation. So Jimmy and all of his friends are actually in a simulated city controlled by the government to spy on Jimmy and see what inventions he comes up with. If you think about it, anytime Jimmy's inventions go wrong or something shows up in public, the people and the police, authorities, even his parents don't really care about what Jimmy did. It's almost as if they're all in on it and this is all a show for him. So what if it's a simulation just to see the extent of Jimmy's mind, trying to see what inventions, what experiments the government can use to either help better their science or even use them for war? This is kind of like that movie, The Truman Show, where he's living his day-to-day life, thinking that everything around him is reality, but actually ends up being simulated, and he's being watched 24/7 to see his actions, reactions, studying him, but he will never know.
Hey Carlos, I heard this crazy theory that the sea creatures from SpongeBob are a result of nuclear radiation. What's your thoughts?
So there's a theory that Bikini Bottom is actually based off a real nuclear testing ground. And the reason that all the sea creatures inside Bikini Bottom can talk and react like human beings is because they were affected by the nuclear radiation that gave them human characteristics. So you guys know that one picture in the intro of SpongeBob with the palm tree on the island? So that picture is from a real place called Bikini Atoll. So Bikini Bottom and Bikini Atoll not only share a similar name, but may also share a similar story. So Bikini Atoll is a real-life nuclear testing ground used by the US military in the Marshall Islands, located halfway between Hawaii and Australia. So a series of 23 nuclear weapons were actually tested at this facility. And the theory goes that Bikini Bottom is a result of all of the nuclear tests and the radiation affecting all of the sea creatures in the water. Now, looking back, you guys remember that one episode where SpongeBob goes to the crevice of Rock Bottom, a city a little bit deeper away from Bikini Bottom? And when SpongeBob is there, you can clearly see all of those sea creatures a little bit more mutated and scarier looking. So what if that whole crevice of Rock Bottom is where the nuclear weapons would have hit, creating that huge hole in the ocean and affecting all of those sea creatures to look really weird and even speak that really weird language that go, you know what I'm talking about? So yeah, all of these things line up. So maybe this theory has some truth to it, and all of those sea creatures are just mutated from all of those nuclear tests.
Hey Carlos, I heard this theory that Spencer from iCarly is Crazy Steve from Drake and Josh. What do you think about it?
So there's a theory that Spencer from iCarly is actually Crazy Steve from Drake and Josh. So the theory goes that Crazy Steve, who is known for having violent outbursts on people and being mentally unhinged, actually kidnapped Megan, Drake and Josh's little sister, and fled to Seattle, giving them both false names and backstories to hide from the police. Now it doesn't end there. So Crazy Steve ended up brainwashing Megan to thinking her name is Carly. Now the show iCarly might be Megan trying to reach out to the public, showing her face, gaining attention, trying to show that she's been brainwashed and kidnapped by Spencer, aka Crazy Steve. Now there's hints throughout the show of iCarly calling back to Drake and Josh. And there's even this one scene where Drake shows up calling Carly Megan.
Hey Megan.
Hi.
Who's she?
I don't believe I know you.
Where's Josh? Where's Mom and Dad?
I mean, this one's a really crazy theory. It doesn't hold too much to it, but it is pretty interesting and fun to see kind of this twist on it, you know? But yeah, thank you everyone for watching. I'm trying to do more on this series for you guys, so stay tuned. If you guys have any theories you guys want to send me, I'm gonna leave my email down in the description below. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate the support. See you guys later.